Without any warning, I was hit with the shocking news. My mother-in-law had passed away. Grief and confusion overwhelmed me. The news came out of nowhere, and I barely had time to process it. Naturally, I thought about attending the funeral. After all, I was her daughter-in-law, and even though our relationship was distant, not going would feel wrong. But when I mentioned it to my husband, William, his reaction was cold and cruel. "Don't you dare come to the funeral," he spat, his voice thick with anger. I blinked in disbelief. What? What are you talking about? She's gone. I'm her daughter-in-law. I should be there. His eyes narrowed, filled with a strange, almost resentful intensity. My mom hated you. She would have never wanted you at her funeral. Don't even think about showing up. The sting of his words took a moment to sink in. My relationship with my mother-in-law had always been distant, but I never imagined she felt such hatred toward me. Something didn't add up. As the daughter-in-law, my absence would be glaringly disrespectful, yet William insisted I stay away. His behavior was strange, unsettling even. A nagging sense of dread tugged at me. But despite William's angry demands, I made my decision. I had to go, no matter what. If I didn't, I'd regret it for the rest of my life. The funeral was being held in a small, remote town, and the drive there gave me time to think. Too much time. Memories of my marriage started to cloud my mind, and the painful truths I'd been ignoring began to surface. My name is Sophia. I'm 30 years old, and I've been married to William for 3 years. What started as a hopeful, love-filled union had slowly disintegrated into something cold and strained. In the early days, everything seemed perfect. When William proposed, he had asked me to quit my job and focus on building a life together. I didn't think much of it at the time. I was just an office worker, and the job didn't mean much to me. So I quit and became a housewife. For the first year, things were okay, but looking back, I now realize that's when the cracks started to form. By our 2nd year of marriage, William had changed. His once gentle demeanor had hardened, and he became increasingly distant. He cut my household budget in half without warning, leaving me with just $500 a month to cover groceries, utilities, and other essentials. I pleaded with him. "William, I can't make ends meet with $500, I said, trying to reason with him. His response was dismissive. "I pay the rent, don't I? You just need to handle the rest. Figure it out." I was floored by his lack of empathy. No matter how much I tried to stretch the money, it was never enough. The stress of constantly running out of funds gnawed at me, and I felt trapped. William's demands only grew harsher, and soon I was burning through my savings just to keep the household afloat. It wasn't just the money. William had begun to change in other ways too. He became moody, irritable, and verbally abusive. The loving man I had married seemed to vanish, replaced by someone colder, someone I didn't recognize. The funeral hall came into view, snapping me out of my thoughts. As I parked the car and approached the entrance, that uneasy feeling returned, stronger than ever. Something wasn't right. I walked inside, expecting to see familiar faces, William's family, perhaps a few friends, but the crowd gathered around the altar was filled with strangers. I spotted William standing at the front, leading the funeral proceedings. My breath caught in my throat as I watched him. There he was, delivering a eulogy, but something was terribly wrong. He wasn't talking about his mother. "Thank you all for coming to honor my wife, Riley," he said, his voice breaking with emotion. "Wife?" My mind raced, trying to make sense of the words. Riley? Who was Riley? The room seemed to spin as the truth hit me like a ton of bricks. This wasn't my mother-in-law's funeral. William had been lying to me. My heart pounded in my chest, and I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. I wanted to confront him right then and there, but I was frozen in place, too shocked to move. Behind me, I overheard the whispers of 2 women seated nearby. "Did you hear?" William was divorced a while ago. His ex-wife left him with a mountain of debt. I felt like the ground had opened beneath me. Divorced? Debt? I hadn't left William with any debt, and we were still married, or so I thought. The realization that something much deeper, much darker, was happening behind the scenes began to sink in. I left the funeral in a daze, my mind racing with unanswered questions. Who was this Riley woman? And more importantly, why had William lied to me about everything? I needed answers, and I knew where to start. When I returned home, I immediately checked our marriage records online. My hands shook as I scrolled through the pages, and there it was, the confirmation I dreaded. Our divorce had been finalized 6 months ago. I had no idea. William had divorced me without my knowledge, behind my back. And now he was standing there, mourning the death of another wife, a woman I never even knew existed. As the shock turned into fury, I realized I had been living in the dark, deceived and manipulated by the man I once loved. But I wasn't going to stay silent anymore. I needed to confront him, and this time I wasn't backing down. The next morning I gathered my strength and made my way to William's family home. I needed answers, and I needed them now. But when I arrived, I wasn't prepared for what I found. My mother-in-law opened the door, her face lighting up with surprise. "Sophia, it's been so long, what brings you here?" I was taken aback. She wasn't supposed to be here. According to William, she was dead. I began, struggling to find the words. "William told me you had passed away." Her eyes widened in shock. "Passed away? What are you talking about? I'm very much alive." That's when it hit me. William had lied, not just about the funeral, but about everything. He had kept me away from his family, fed me false stories, and manipulated me into believing them. My mind raced, trying to comprehend the level of deceit. I decided to tell her everything, the lies, the fake divorce, the other woman. My mother-in-law's expression shifted from confusion to anger as I revealed the depth of William's betrayal. "I had no idea," she said softly, shaking her head. "Sophia, I'm so sorry. He's been lying to all of us." As the truth unraveled before us, one thing became clear. William's deception ran deeper than I could have ever imagined. Not only had he divorced me in secret, but he had also used his family's sympathy and resources to cover up his lies. "I don't know what he's thinking," my mother-in-law said, her voice shaking with anger, "but we can't let him get away with this." Together, we formed a plan. William had spun a web of lies, but now it was time to untangle it, piece by piece. I wasn't going to let him walk away without facing the consequences of his actions. The next day, I made my way back to the house where William was staying, armed with the truth and ready to confront him. When I arrived, the funeral had ended, and most of the guests had left. But a few people still lingered, including William. As I approached him, he looked up and saw me. His face paled. "Sophia, what are you doing here?" he stammered, clearly caught off guard. "I could ask you the same thing," I said, my voice cold and steady. "But I already know the answer. You lied to me, William, about everything." His eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape, but there was none. I wasn't going to let him slither away this time. "You divorced me behind my back," I continued, my voice rising with each word. "You married another woman, and you lied to your entire family. How long did you think you could keep this up?" For a moment, William was silent, his face twisted in fear and shame. Then, in a last-ditch effort to salvage his crumbling facade, he muttered, "Sophia, I can explain, but I didn't want to hear it." His explanations were worthless now. "No," I said firmly, cutting him off. "You don't get to explain. You don't get to lie your way out of this." Just as the tension between us reached its peak, the door opened, and in walked someone I never expected, my mother-in-law. Her presence brought a wave of shock over William. His eyes widened in disbelief as she strode across the room. Her expression hardened with resolve. "Mom," he stammered, his voice trembling. "Yes, it's me," she said, her voice icy. "Sophia told me everything. You've disgraced this family with your lies and deceit." The color drained from William's face as his mother's words hit him like a hammer. There was no escape now. Every lie he had built was crumbling around him, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. "I want you out of my life, William," I said, my voice steady but filled with finality. "You've hurt me for the last time." And with that, I turned and walked away, leaving William to face the consequences of his actions alone. But this wasn't the end. Not yet. Over the next few weeks, the pieces of William's deception slowly began to unravel. With the help of my mother-in-law, I discovered that William had been siphoning money from his family for years, claiming that I was sick and unable to work. He had borrowed thousands of dollars under false pretenses, all while gambling away the money and living a double life with his new wife, Riley. It turned out that Riley had been sick for a long time, and William had married her knowing she wouldn't live much longer. He had hoped to collect sympathy, and perhaps financial support after her passing. But his greed and deception were finally catching up to him. One evening, I received a phone call from my lawyer. The case I had filed against William for forging our divorce papers was moving forward. Not only was he facing charges for forgery, but Riley's family had also filed a lawsuit against him for the debts he had accumulated under false pretenses. As I listened to my lawyer outline the legal proceedings, a sense of relief washed over me. William would finally face justice. Everything he had done, all the lies, all the betrayal, was coming back to haunt him. And as for me, I was ready to move on. With the support of my mother-in-law, I found the strength to rebuild my life. I returned to work, found a new apartment, and slowly began to heal from the scars William had left behind. 6 months later, I sat across from my mother-in-law at a cozy cafe, sipping on tea. Our relationship had grown stronger since the ordeal, and I had come to see her as more than just an in-law. She had become a friend, a confidant, and a source of strength. "I still can't believe everything that's happened," I said, shaking my head. "It feels like a bad dream." "I know," she replied, her eyes soft with understanding. "But you made it through. You're stronger than you think, Sophia." I smiled, grateful for her support. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace. "I think I'm finally ready to let it all go," I said quietly. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You've already started, my dear." As I walked home that evening, the weight of the past began to lift from my shoulders. The shadows of betrayal had haunted me for too long, but now I was stepping into the light. My life was my own again, and I was ready to live it, on my terms. The end of one chapter was the beginning of another, and this time I was writing my own story.